Sheila Marcelo is a founder, CEO, and builder whose life's work sits at the intersection of technology, care, and family. Best known for creating care.com and now leading ohai.ai, Sheila has spent more than 2 decades designing platforms that make it easier for families to live, work, and care for one another, because she believes that when families are supported, everything else works better. A visionary entrepreneur and trusted leader, Sheila brings heart to innovation, scale to purpose, and humanity to the future of AI. Please enjoy my time with my friend, Sheila. Hey, y'all. Let's go there. All right, Sheila Marcelo, we did it.
Thank you for having me.
We finally got together. I'm so excited. I've been really looking forward to this. There's so many things we could talk about. But before we get started, I'd love to give everyone the context of how we know one another.
Yay.
Yeah, we are Henry Crown Fellows together.
Mhm.
You also happen to be the nominator of one of my dear classmates, Jocelyn Mangan.
Oh, I love Jocelyn.
We got to know each other through one of our women's events and realized that we shared a lot of the same values from a leadership perspective and from a business perspective. And it's a big reason of why I'm so excited to have you on. Plus, as I said, as we were getting set up, I feel like you're in your era right now. You're at your best, Sheila. And so I feel like I'm getting you at your absolute best.
Oh, excited to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Sheila, how do you describe yourself when you present yourself? How do you think about yourself?
Hmm. Often I start with grandmother now
That's hard to believe.
because I've got a 1-year-old, November 18th, or Cecilia. We call her Cece. Um, Definitely social entrepreneurship is near and dear to me. Often describe myself as a Filipino-American immigrant. Helping build companies in a serial way, really focused on helping families.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think what's so cool is how clear you are, how centered you are in terms of
Mm,
being mission driven.
mm.
Now, would you rather start with what you're doing today, or do you want to go back in terms of what brought you here?
I leave it to you, whatever serves all your listeners.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Ohio and what you're doing today.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I thought, Carla, as you know, I founded care.com
Hmm.
and I sold it February 2020. We can always rewind and go back to that later. And I thought my job was done around serving families. I felt like I led a purpose driven life, really served millions of families and caregivers to help match them on care. And then went on sabbatical, thought that I'd be an investor, and realized I still had operational itches to scratch. And so I decided to do an ed tech company, but then found that the technology was ready with a problem that I identified even back in 2015 when I was at Care, which I called everyday life coordination.
Mm.
Difficulty of the mental load that we carry as what we call chief household officers, of making sure that kids were picked up on time, homework was done, meals were on the table at the right time that were nutritious, catching up on doctor's appointments. All those things are part of the role of caregiving. And at Care, we had scaled the ability to find care services to assist you. But all this was something that still families struggled with. Vivek Murthy, our former Surgeon General, had actually stated, and I knew this from my own lived experience, that the number one impact on the next generation, and he called it an epidemic, was really parental stress, and because it impacts the next generation. If there's trauma within a family of simple logistics of figuring it out, and then it ends up becoming an emotional conversation between the parents, the kids experience it, they witness it. And so the scaffolding or this foundational sense of support that families need is missing. And I've been wanting to build this since 2015, but the tech wasn't ready, and now it is. So ohai is an operating system for families that we are building that really takes the everyday life and makes it easy for families.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Sheila, I can't tell you how many times as a C-level executive for the last 12 plus years, I said to one of my male peers, I could really use a wife.
Yes.
Because of everything that you're talking about. And then also in my work with the Texas Conference for Women, we saw in the data during COVID the significant amount of women that left the workforce
That's right.
as a result of this tax
I
and
think
inability to manage both. It's in the millions.
yeah, I think I just posted about it too.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it is incredible the number of women that leave the workforce with this in mind. And so the statistic is Oxfam did a study in 2020 that on average, women put in 4.8 hours of unpaid labor per day. That is on top of the issues that we have around equal pay at work of the 8-hour day. Then on top of that, we have the 4.8 hours of unpaid. Now, men do have about 2.5, 2.8 hours per day that they also put in. But that difference that women are unpaid and unseen work that really goes into taking care of families is not part of how we look at the economy.
Yeah.
And so this has always been near and dear to me, the care economy. And a good friend of mine, Ai Poo, always says, care is the work that makes all work possible.
So true.
Because if we don't take care of our loved ones, we can't actually show up for work and for people and for the general society. So to your point, women do take the lion's share.
Yeah. And I can't imagine the stress that that puts. I mean, I can imagine the stress that it puts on a marriage, the stress that it puts on the family system,
It does.
and the entire household. So tell me a little bit about how Ohai works and
Yeah.
how people can actually spin it up in their own lives and think about using it in their own lives.
It's super easy. You just sign up at ohai.ai, and we ingest your family calendars, your school activities. We just launched, for example, 67,000 school districts. You can just put in your zip code of your school. We ingest the school calendar, and you
Oh
get
my
to
gosh.
click to add. It takes you 2 seconds every semester to just add everything in the schedule, so you don't miss MLK Day, early closures, Teacher Appreciation Day, Picture Day, all that you can quickly add to your calendar as opposed to typing kind of in the middle of the night and being worried. There's also what we call the daily dump. It goes through the conflicts of your calendar because Ohai really represents the household. You and your spouse and your kids, if they're teenagers, can use the product to coordinate with each other. And there's an assistant in the middle that sends reminders, that pings everybody, that delegates work when there's conflict. So it
Oh,
will say, Carla, I get that you're saying you're going to pick up your son or daughter at 4:30, but you've got a meeting. So you can't do that. Would you like us to delegate to your spouse? So, and the assistant, the AI assistant does that for you. It makes it simple. It confirms as well. Um, and then Jocelyn, my dear Jocelyn, gave me this beautiful idea. She and I were just catching up, and she said, Sheila, you know what I really need? I need somebody to summarize Sunday night, all the 8 different apps I use,
yeah.
Class Dojo, Team Snap, Google Classroom, just summarize it for me in a beautiful summary every Sunday night. So we've since launched that. We have a long wait list. We are piloting families on it. We call it, for Jocelyn, Smart Ohai Sync. She inspired me to do this. I will always credit her for this product that is really helping families. So we talk to families every day and really listen to their feedback. Everything from reminders of when to take meds, doctor's appointments, up to-do list. We integrated Instacart. You can just put, hey, my favorite chicken parm, creates the entire actual list of ingredients. You hit a couple buttons, it orders it for you. It's delivered the next day. You know, it's super easy. So we just take it. We're doing meal planning. We're integrating food delivery soon. So there's just a bunch of different things around the. Just think about, what do you, Carla, worry about every day for your kids? Those are the things we are building.
You know what you're making me realize, Sheila, is because now that I'm an empty nester, I didn't think I would need it as much, but this would be super beneficial for me with my aging parents.
Yes, for aging parents. A fellow, Henry Crown, she just became a Henry Crown. Rashida Jones was the president of MSNBC.
Yep.
She left her job. She didn't have an assistant. She found Ohio on her own. We didn't even know each other. And then
I
she
love that.
now uses Ohio as her personal assistant.
That is so cool, Sheila. Okay. Now I'm going to ask the hard question because I'm sure you get this from time to time.
Yeah.
Is this taking jobs away from people? This is the question I hear most often when I talk about AI. How do you think about it?
Well, what's interesting about creating an assistant for the household is actually Laura Gonzalez, as you know, is also a Henry Crown. When I was brainstorming this idea with her, she said, "Sheila, this is a whole new category.
Yeah.
No one does this for families. So, in essence, there really aren't many personal assistants. I mean, 99% of people don't have personal assistants for themselves at home.
Yeah.
It's not actually, is there a job title? Are there personal assistants in the home? Yes. But for the 1% of the population, Carla, because it's so expensive, we charge $9.99 a month for
Yeah.
this, and it's very affordable.
Yeah.
No. And what's interesting, it's to answer your question, we're not taking jobs away. And what's interesting is, maybe to be clever about it, we are taking jobs away specifically. It's actually task, especially for the chief household officer,
Yeah.
of mundane everyday tasks that just takes hours and hours of every day. And so that instead we give back time to the family. They get to enjoy sitting down at meals together. Mom has extra time to think about nutrition instead of coming home from soccer and saying, "Oh my God, I'm just going to order pizza because I don't have time."
Yeah.
Because then the assistant can handle a lot of these, plan, anticipate. So is it taking a job away cleverly? I think it's taking task away to give back time for families.
Yeah. And I asked the question just to be provocative. My perspective on AI really is it's an enhancer, it's a tool,
Yes.
that it's a productivity scaler. It doesn't happen in isolation. It requires human involvement.
Yes.
When you are talking about AI out in the world, or you think about the future of your grandchild,
Hmm.
how do you think people should be preparing themselves for this transition, and how do you talk about it?
What's interesting is, you labeled that I have this clarity around mission. The reason I came up with the name OHI, OHAI, it's HA is humanity within AI, human assistance within AI. And then I often describe that, especially encouraging entrepreneurs to have that focus around the importance of the human side in what we build in AI and the responsibility as entrepreneurs. So that's important for me as an entrepreneur, first and foremost. The second is, as a female leader building in AI, the important role as women we have to play. Jeff Hinton, one of the early inventors of AI, who worked at Google, he left, and he's been quoted to say one of the key challenges he finds in how AI is being built today is that it lacks maternal instincts of how the AI needs to think about caring for a child. And that, in my mind, my translation with that is, how do we get more women and our instincts and the feminine instincts that's also inherent in men to be infused in the things that are being built? And that includes not only female entrepreneurs like me and so many others, and a good friend of ours, Christina Mays Turner with Hoopit, right? Like, there's a lot of great women building in AI. We need more of those. We need more females on boards building AI companies to infuse the values of the feminine as well. And I'm so proud that Jocelyn is also behind that. And then, how do we get more women using AI?
Yeah.
So in Ojai, we have an initiative called Rising Families, where we have, targeting underserved women, especially women of color, and working with community centers to train them on how to use AI and how to use Ojai to help their everyday, and making it super affordable for them, and how they can come in to use AI. So my mission isn't just to actually relieve the pain and the everyday cognitive load that families deal with, but it has also always been with me around what we did at care.com, which is, building things for equity and accessibility, which is still near and dear to me.
Yeah. I actually think that AI brings a massive opportunity for accessibility and equity. I'm with you on that. I often say that I have visions of like the inner city fifth grader creating a film from his phone,
Yeah.
and it becomes an Oscar winning picture, and he's doing it after school on the school bus.
Ah,
Uh,
happening more and more. I mean, we're not I think it's around the corner where you're gonna have single solopreneurs building massive companies solving problems in the world.
It's super, super cool to think about. I also just want to build on your notion of infusing the feminine from a energy perspective. Gosh, if we could infuse that into our systems, into the way in which we govern, like not just AI, the way in which we run businesses. I mean, just what if we could infuse the maternal into our human race? Like, what could that do for our planet? It's just so powerful to think about. Um,
Yeah. Can I add, I have this philosophy I call the starfish principle, which is, the story where an elderly person, or it could be a man or a woman, and they're throwing starfish into the ocean one at a time. And there's lots of starfishes on the beach, and a child comes and says, "Why? This takes so much time. Why are you doing it?" And it's like, well, makes a difference for that one.
mhm,
Um, and so my starfish principle is with everything that's happening in the world and how we can actually help women and other women help women. I've been in the family space and in the care space, and now I'm coming into this maternal AI world. And so I think I just continue to double down in this place that I can help find solutions to advance things to help women and families. I say that because if you're listening and you're trying to find ways to help, I used to, when I was younger, get overwhelmed of being involved in everything and advancing in all sides. I remember, you have Jocelyn putting women on boards, and I think she's amazing, and I can go help host a dinner for her. But we can support others, but where we can actually make a difference and lead, we need to find where that light of ours is and make a difference in that area. And that's my starfish principle. It's like, I can't solve everything, but in the areas that I can add my light and my expertise, I'm going to try and advance as much as I can.
absolutely. And we all bring that. We all have our unique gifts. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Okay. So, one more question about AI, and then I want to talk about care.com.
Sure.
Um, as a mom, how do you talk to AI with your grown children, asking for a
Mm,
friend to
mm.
prepare them for this next era? And how would you advise parents have this conversation with their kids about AI for this next era in terms of the opportunity?
Well, definitely, I talk about it with my kids, and they're using it too, and they're older. I don't have kids at school age in high school, but I can imagine, or even middle school, or even elementary. I can imagine really talking to them about the power, just like I did when my kids were using the internet, of the ability for efficiency, ability for thoughtful use to solve problems and to advance things and enhance, as you pointed out. Um, so much of the value of education allows us to leverage the AI and the prompts in a way that um, allows us to get the most out of it. Like, for example, I was having this debate with my kids around what's sad, for example, is if you haven't had the experience writing an email and don't have the work experience, you may go straight to AI and just say, "Hey, write me an email." And you don't know the norm, the culture, or how do you graciously, for example, make an intro between two people. If you haven't practiced that and you're going to just take the shortcut to AI, then of course whoever's on the receiving end is going to feel like, well, wow, that felt off, right? So in some sense, I still think the human side, will it get faster? Could I see AI also teaching you how to do that? Yes. But I do think that the layering in of human to human to also still educate and teach and get us smarter to how to use these tools to enhance continues to play an important role.
Absolutely.
And we can't just take these shortcuts and assume that then, because then you're removing the humanity for whoever's receiving it on the other end. And how are we connecting with people,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
an example?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. I also had a friend who's CEO of an AI company that said his advice, and I thought it was really fun, was he was like, just play in it.
Yes.
No pressure, just play in it. Just get
Learn.
acquainted, see what's possible.
Yes.
And then you could probably come up with your own uses.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so care.com. So I've
Yeah.
never told you this, but I used care.com with my first child, with my firstborn.
Wow.
So I was actually a customer of yours way back when. Tell me a little bit about care.com and how that came to be.
Going back, I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I came to the US for college, and was not expecting to get pregnant between my sophomore and junior year in college. I'm still married to the same man, 34 years, my husband Ron. We got pregnant and then got married very quickly, and he was also in college at the time. So we struggled through our education and our careers, juggling young children. Eventually, fell into careers and grad school and all the difficulty and all of that, while the world around searching for care was sort of falling apart. What do I mean by that? Meaning, um, the yellow pages, some listeners are gonna be like, "What's that?" Yellow pages, the yellow books that were printed on who the service providers all went out of business. Classifieds were going out of business also, and that's usually where we would post to find. The latest technology out there was like this little white list called Craigslist in popping up in different cities, and so the options for families to find great care were few and far between. And I talked about accessibility. Could you go to a nanny agency and find care? Yes, but that wasn't affordable to many families. And we, through grad school, were poor and we were just starting out. So I lived the experience of, oh my God, how do I find care for my child? So what did I do? I begged my parents to come from the Philippines to help care for our kids when I was working at a startup. I was at You Promise helping families save money for college. You'll see here a theme in my career. Even back then, I was trying to help families. And I begged my parents to come to the US. And my father was carrying little Adam up the stairs. And I was at work at You Promise. And my father fell backwards and had a heart attack. And my God, thankfully, we were in Massachusetts. So we ended up getting great care and he's alive today. But the plan that I had, that I was going to ask my parents to help me while we were both working, went out the door. I suddenly was sandwiched. That is what we call it. Sometimes I call it a panini because it's like that melted cheese of like
Yeah.
really planned out stress. And I was juggling childcare and senior care at the same time. My mom had high blood pressure, felt anxious every day that when my father had a heart attack and he was healing. So, and I barely slept during those times. And what was interesting, Carla, is it was at the height of the internet. It was sort of in in the 90s. And when I was working, and also I went to grad school and I wrote a business plan to match people with real estate. This was pre-Zillow. My business plan was called Metro Move
Wow.
90s. But I parked that business and I said, well, wait, if I can build a marketplace for families and homes, why not families and caregivers? Given the experience that I was going through. And so that really was the birth of care.com, was this concept of my own difficult experience. What was going out there in the world was becoming difficult to find care. Oh, and the third thing that I started to observe, and when I was ready to start care.com, was that people to people services online was um, becoming more and more acceptable. Because years before that, monster.com was way ahead of finding jobs online. And I remember when Monster came out, they were like, I would never go online to hire anybody. That's all we do.
Yeah.
And then came Match.com. I would never go online to find love.
Yeah.
So by the time Care and I came up with the idea, consumers were ready to go online to look for people to people services, including their families. And Facebook, care.com and Facebook started around the same time. Facebook, we were putting our lives online, our personal lives online. So all of those confluence made me realize that, that this service could really help families.
Wow. And how did you set out to do it, Sheila? I kind of want to get into the nuts and bolts of it. Did you
Mm.
go out and raise funds? How did you build your team? Tell us a little bit about how how you built it.
Yeah, I was lucky. I had been invited to be an entrepreneur in residence at Matrix Partners. I had come up with the idea, and they had, I don't think, ever funded a woman nor a consumer company. And I said, before I become an entrepreneur in residence, I am interested in this space. I just want to make sure we're aligned, because they had been doing high tech and SaaS platforms, and I wanted to do a direct to consumer and very focused on women. And they said, "Yep, super supportive. We love your operational background." I had done a couple of startups before that, and so when I was there, but Carl, I actually paused the business plan before I started it, even though I had said all the things I just shared. I know I'm working backwards here. Part of it was I had my JD MBA at Harvard, and I had this insecurity that I was going to be labeled by my peers as building a soft, non-serious business. And I went to go see a friend who was in my section in business school for advice, and she'd been in banking. And she looked at me and she's like, "Why would you build a babysitting company after all your experience? You did these two startups, you have a JD MBA from Harvard, like babysitting." And it made me insecure about how I'd be perceived. And so I actually shelved the business plan for care for 3 months. And then I had a mentor, a male mentor, take me out to lunch and then said, "Okay, Sheila, let's just analyze this. Are you in the pain business or the pleasure business?" So, Carla, what did he mean by that? The pain side was, wait, you have been building companies you promise you help build, which is helping save money for college. That's not fun. And then the second job I did after that was helping people find jobs. They're like, that's not fun either. And so looking for care is not fun. So you like to solve consumer problems. A pleasure business because I got invited by a hot mobile gaming company to go run it.
Ah,
And I was toying with the idea and I was like, gaming, mobile, it's hot, it's sexy. Maybe I should go do that instead. And that's why I also parked it. I just felt like, oh, that just seems like a more serious business. And he said to me that I get that. That's the pleasure business. It's gaming, it's fun, all that. But is that really you? Gosh, Carl, I did some soul searching. I went home. And then the next day, I went into Matrix Partners where I was an EIR and I was like, let's do this. I'm going to go do it. Let's do care.com. So that was one. So you asked me how the story was first conquer my own insecurities, my own perceptions of myself and why I wanted to do this. And I always say to entrepreneurs, you really got to dig deep on your purpose because if you're not fully bought in, this is a hard, hard road to build. You have to really believe. And then we started building. Then what's interesting about building a company from scratch is I just explained you have to be super passionate. You have to balance that with also being dispassionate, meaning at the very beginning, became very data driven. I still do it at Ohai. I put a thesis out in the world. I double check, is this a problem or that is real to millions of
yeah.
people?
How big is it?
Or is it just me?
Yeah.
Is the bullseye clear? Like, are we really identifying a great target market? You mentioned it, the total addressable market. Is it big enough? Is it so you have to really test your thesis. And we did that. We do that from the get-go. I still do it at Ohai every day. We test the thesis, we get real data, and then you have to be objective about your thesis and you become dispassionate. So it's like you have to have a passion for the problem you're trying to solve, but dispassionate that the solution that you may come up with has to evolve, has to pivot, has to, be data driven so that your team respects you as well, right? Your investors respect you. So that is super important. And if you think about it, one's is very emotion driven, one is data driven. And how do you balance that as an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
You've got to have that very clear for yourself.
There's almost a spiritual component because it's like practicing non-attachment. You
Yes,
know you're setting out to do something, but you have to kind of unattach from the outcome in order to really see what unfolds clearly.
that's right. I love now, you and I'm 55 and I can put phrases to what this is that I intuitively felt in 2006. And now I can name it. But yes, it's how do you set goals for yourself and then release yourself from the attachment to the outcome and instead enjoy the journey,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
Thank God you did it, Sheila. I'm just thinking about like that sliding doors moment of you're almost not doing care.com. And I think about the families that you must have helped over the years and what would have happened if you hadn't existed. So thank God you did it.
I yes, totally, but it was so much learning, Carla. It was like a up and down roller coaster, so many different moments, and thankful and grateful for all the learning and the growth, but it really was a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the outcome of care.com? And when you look back at it, what do you think about?
Sold. We actually took it public in 2014. I ran it as a public company for about 6.5 years and then and then I took it private again. I sold it to IAC and they're running it today. Had many different aspects of the business. So the way I think about it is it's not only serving millions of families and caregivers, but it is a B2C as well as we cleverly also built a B2B business on top. At the time, we called it Care at Work. I think now the new CEO may call it Care Concierge. We also launched to 20 countries around the world.
Wow.
And then we also we became the largest gig economy platform even before the rideshare companies. And we fought for really building within the product ways in which we could be really respectful to caregivers, making sure that no caregiver was paid below minimum wage on the platform. We didn't allow that. We helped them get access to healthcare. We ensured that they had access to Social Security benefits and payroll. We built these very, very early on and different kinds of businesses that we started to buy and integrate to make sure that there was responsible caregiving across the country for both families and caregivers. So we built a lot of different things that I'm very proud of as a legacy of how do you build companies to deliver on a mission. And it's actually, I credit the Crown Fellowship because when I was building care, I knew that I was solving a pain point and a problem, but it wasn't until after the Crown Fellowship that I started to realize I had a bigger role to play as an entrepreneur on what I can do to make uh, families' lives better because the cost of care was going up. How could I help caregivers so that they were treated with respect and dignity? And built it within the product. And then that I learned through the social responsibility of creating a good society from the Crowns. And then the second is what was my role for advocacy? And I found my voice. I started to realize that my platform, not only as a builder, but as an actual advocate, became super important. And so going back, I think the legacy isn't just the product I built, but it is also the values that were infused in the movement of building care.com.
Sheila, I'm in complete and total awe. I find this so aspirational because you were so clear in terms of your mission. But what I was overlooking was the fact that you were doing good on every vector. So you were
Hmm.
doing good for families, you were doing good for the caregivers, you were doing good from a platform perspective, from an advocacy standpoint. We didn't even talk about policy, but I imagine that played a role at some point. You were
Absolutely.
doing good on multiple platforms. You're role modeling for other young Asian immigrant women what could be possible. I mean, I just think about all the vectors in which you were doing good, and I find it incredibly aspirational and so clear. So, I mean, I just have to say that out loud.
No, thank you. And it is a journey. Often I meet with people and they say, you've done so much, and why is it that you're accessible? Or why is it that, you you act like, you see is what you get. And I often say, because it was hard. None of this, and I feel incredibly fortunate and lucky and grateful that I got this chance to do what I do. And at the same time, do it with an incredible support system of teams. My assistant, who's been with me, Aline, for over 25 years, and the assistants that supported me through care, my husband, you know, kids that were with me on my journey,
Yeah.
both children. So I every day, and my parents, my sister, my siblings, there was just always an atta girl. Like it without that level of love, I, I it would have been impossible.
So, yeah, I want to talk about this because I think that you just radiate this positivity and you radiate this love, but it was not easy. You just said it. And I don't want to speed bump over the fact that you got pregnant in college.
Yes. Yes.
And that must have
Yes.
been super scary for you.
Yeah.
And so how did you do it? How did you achieve all this with the headwinds that you had? And how did you overcome those hard moments? I want to hear about those.
Yeah. A few stories. This was right after we had Ryan, and I was one of my first jobs, and this was before grad school. And I had taken on a telecom consulting job and traveled to 6 countries over 3 weeks to create some market research reports. And I came home and landed in the hospital with just complete stress. They couldn't figure out what it was. My mouth was covered with sores everywhere inside, and I couldn't eat. I couldn't ingest liquids. And they checked, was it herpes? Was it any kind of disease or virus? No, it was all stress related. The only thing that saved me was steroids. And at the time, Carla, I was so worried. I was 3 weeks hospitalized. Was I sat there and I thought, my God, I remember looking at the curtains with tears rolling down my eyes. I'm going to get emotional. I said, how am I going to support my family? Like, if I'm here not taking care of me and my mental state, how am I going to go do this? And my husband has had trauma. He lost his mom, his brother. He's had a lot of trauma. And so I knew I was coming in as the breadwinner into our family. And so I got out of there and I started reading about mental health. And the thing that brought me into it, and I was looking for efficient solutions because I was still in my 20s, was meditation. So I picked up meditation in my 20s. And at the time, it was just to calm myself down and to get to know myself better around, okay, I get it. I'm juggling a lot. We don't have a lot of money. I'm trying to perform at work. And I'm applying to grad school, and I'm taking care of a kid, and my husband and I are learning to be married, while having a child, very intense. And I started meditating. And I think that was one of the things that saved me during that period of like trying to find calm in the storm, of really understanding what's going on with me up here that's not helpful. When we have these thoughts and it creates stories, it then ends up impacting our nervous system. So I started meditation at a young age. And then I kept meditating on and off. And then I brought it back in my career when I started to realize, gosh, I'm a terrible leader. I'm impatient. I don't listen well. I like to be right. I was JD MBA from Harvard. I got out and I was like, I'm hot shit. And I'm like trying to manage a meeting and no one wants to like work for me because I'm too demanding. And I'm like,
Wow.
and meditating, journaling. I had two mentors take me when I was at U Promise and said, oh my God, you're so bright. You have so much potential, like a hypo, but boy, no one wants to work with you, and you are a disaster. Like until you figure this out, you're no way. So I had to really do some soul searching around who am I? I started to realize, do I go in a meeting? Do I inspire? Did I impress or did I inspire? Like, what's my agenda?
Oh, I
What's my
love that. Did I impress or did I inspire?
yeah? Like I started to journal about these things and ask myself, like, what's my truth? What's my agenda? Like what's driving me? Like why do I want to be right? What is this? And so the meditation helped a lot with that, with growing self-awareness. Now still imperfect. And then it also allowed me to realize what kind of culture I wanted to build at care.com, how I wanted to be a caring leader, Was I a perfect leader? Absolutely not. Boy, I was still demanding, hard to work for, all this. But my empathy, my nurturing, my feminine, and I became more comfortable with that, started to come out. My vulnerability, my openness, my transparency, my admitting my failures to people,
Mm.
saying, "Oh my God, I ran a terrible meeting. I'm so sorry, guys. Like, let's figure this out." Then this third chapter of my meditation, this is postcare.com. I started to realize my body caved. Part of the reason I left care and sold it was I announced that I didn't want to be CEO anymore and I was going to be exec chair. And then we had different buyers come out of the woodwork who wanted to buy care, but my hips were failing me. My stress was just
Your
so high.
hips were failing you. Just really
Yeah.
quick, hips are emotion, right?
Yes, usually it was like grabbing me. It was like, and I didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
I remember trying to put on a pair of pants and crying to my husband saying, "What is happening to me?" And I used to have a sense of control, right? Like, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have got to let go of my job because it is killing me." Despite the mission in my heart and I just sheer passion of like just going for it, my body was tired. It's like I needed to retire. I needed to rest. And so I took a pause, sold care. Then this third phase of meditation started to happen as I took the sabbatical. This third phase started to get into a deeper sense of truth for me around, an incredible book by Dr. Hawkins called Letting Go, a better understanding of shadows, of limiting beliefs, of disturbances, of emotional triggers. And this level of meditation, another one that I use is holotropic breath work, where I go very deep. And I started to see my sources of shadows of what is it that makes me impatient? What is it that drives my anger? What back then I was using meditation to be self-aware of the anger, but I didn't know where it was coming from. I just knew it was there and I could admit that it was there. But then I went into self-judgment about it, Carla. Like I was like, "Oh my
And
God,
that's just gonna hold it in place.
I'm a terrible person. I can't believe." And then I'm like, am I power hungry? Is that why I ran a difficult meeting? Or is it, where is this coming from? So it led me to do IFS, inner child work, internal family systems, and
Yeah.
start to understand in this third chapter of depth of work of like, who am I? Where did these imprints come from? And if we can talk to our inner child and have those imprints clear and understood and not judged, and the word you use is acceptance. We then move to a different chapter of who is the Sheila that is a higher self and enlightened, having worked through that. And that is this third phase I'm in. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a fourth. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I'm I'm relishing in the investment in better understanding me.
I see it, woman. I see it. I see the work that you've done, and I see you operating at that higher plane. And I'll have what she's having. Um, but okay. But so, what did you learn about yourself in that? So, shadow work is super fascinating to me. There's this book called Existential Kink that somebody
Ooh,
recommended to me about shadow work,
right.
about
Yeah.
about your shadow, and the Cliff's Notes is, everything that we don't like about ourselves, we're actually holding in place.
Yeah.
And so, but what did you learn about yourself in that? And then how did you get to a place of acceptance?
Yeah, there's a lot there. As you know, in the map of consciousness, there's levels of energy that's actually measured even through muscle testing. And when I started to do some of the shadow work, the lowest one is shame, and I went through, tackling shame, fear, guilt, pride, desire, anger, all of them. Every human being. Started to not judge myself, started to accept that each layer and understand Where did shame come from? Did shame come from the fact that, um, my parents, born and raised in the Philippines, and my parents, my mom and dad married young too. And I saw my mom's pain getting pregnant as well when she was young, and always wondering, did my father's family accept her? And there was a lot of anger growing up in my household, and some of it through the Asian culture as well, and of my mom feeling, you know, having to hold herself up with the in-laws, and the feeling, and sometimes the feeling that I would take as a child watching that, the feeling that, and then I look a lot like my grandmother,
Wow.
my dad's mother, and so I wondered the impact of my mom's relationship on me and the motivation. Did I chase things in my life because I wanted my mom's acceptance, over and over again because of her own trauma and difficulty as a young mother? And in full cycle, I also got pregnant, and so I went through that, and my own relationship with my kids, and my son gave me the gift. Actually, it was during the IPO dinner. I often share this story where, mm, this is before this third chapter of this meditative work and deep work that I was doing, where I share this story where my son was at the refrigerator in high school, and he just graduated, or I was at the fridge, and he just graduated, and I asked the question, "Have I been a good mom?" And his answer was, "You weren't around enough."
Ooh.
And it was like a dagger to the heart. And then in 2014 at the IPO dinner, he stood up in front of bankers and investors and everything, and it was an open mic. He was the first one who took the mic, and he looked straight at me, and he said, "Mom," he told everybody the story. He's like, "Do you remember this question you asked me at the fridge?" And he then said, "I want you to know, after everything that I've seen here in the millions that you're helping, that you're a great mom." And my heart broke, and tears were rolling down my face. And I've started to share that the learning, and I did this actually. I just shared this at my birthday party when I turned 55 in a speech where I shared with everyone that the lesson wasn't so much the labeling of somehow he was apologizing to me. No, that wasn't it. The lesson was that he forgave me, Carla, that he forgave me. And that allowed me to forgive myself. That a large part of the shadow of guilt, this was where guilt was coming in, just like my own mother's journey, is how do we forgive ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest gift he gave me.
Well,
And it's pretty powerful, because for many years when I translated that experience, or even when I talked about it in public, it was like as if I felt so proud. I raised this feminist son who saw me, and I sure realized, no, I carried that not because of how he saw me, but how I needed to see me, you know? And I needed to forgive myself that I got pregnant in college, and it was really hard, what we went through. And I take pride, even though it was difficult, um, and grateful that we got through it. Um, but that I can pat myself in the back, me and my husband, we look at each other, we're like, we turned out okay. We turned
oh, hell yes.
out.
Oh, hell yes. And then
So, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah.
I just need a moment after that one because, yeah, as a working mom, it's the thing we worry about most, right?
Yes.
And I definitely felt that one.
Whew.
Oh, man. Okay. Man, Sheila. All right. So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the immigrant experience.
Hmm.
I'm an immigrant too. And I have friends that are immigrants. We often talk about the immigrant curse. Like, why? Why do we have this like relentless drive and
Yes.
we've got to like maximize on this lottery ticket of being in this country and but I want to know from you what's been your immigrant experience if you think about it, especially during these times.
Oh, it was hard. Interestingly, I had relatives who were educated in the US before I came to the US. And my grandfather fought for the Americans and became an American citizen. He was at the Bataan Death March. So we always had this like, most Filipinos had this like very glamorized relationship with the US, with the
Absolutely.
music, the spam, the corned beef,
Yeah.
like so coming to the US and then my grandmother and my eldest brother had actually gone to the US to visit relatives. And then when my brother came back, told all these stories. And so for us as kids, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. So we came in the 70s. And my parents were entrepreneurs. And I lived in a home province that was very well known for coconut. And my family had a lot of coconut. We were in the coconut business. And we supplied coconut to the Mars family for almond joy.
Wow.
And we sold many families sold coconut to almond joy, but we were one of the families that sold. And so my father, the story that I was told is that when he would used to go hunting, bird hunting, and went with the American Mars family. And my father, shy as he was still like, oh, well, how do we expel oil from the coconut? Because right now, because we did everything with the coconut, we would take the husk of the coconut and turn it into coal because it would burn slowly in the Philippines and lots of people used it for heat and everything and cooking, but it created pollution and my father was worried that the husk of the coconut would burn through people's lungs and nose. It just didn't feel healthy. And my parents had the vision. They were like, well, could we expel other energy through the oil? And so the Mars family said, well, Houston, go to Houston, Texas. That's where the technology is. That's what brought us to the United States in the 70s because my parents were these entrepreneurs that wanted to go solve something. And it was supposed to be just a visit. We were supposed to check out technology, maybe do some, touristing and all that. Oh my God, my parents, and it's wide, wide Texas. My parents fell in love. They were like, wow, look at the opportunity here. And I think we landed in the 70s in Houston where there weren't many Asian families. And so my father was like, let's open a Asian restaurant, an Asian grocery store. And they were super excited about it. And we were little. I was 6 when I came. And so we got educated in the United States between the ages of 6 and 9. Um, Carla, I have to say, everybody looked alike. All white women looked alike, all black women looked alike to me, and I was like, "What?" It was like an out of body experience. Um, I didn't speak the language, so the whole y'all thing, I had difficulty understanding people, and I felt, how did I feel? In school, I didn't feel like I belonged.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I didn't get a sense of memories of being bullied, but I still didn't feel like I belonged in the way that I saw other kids quickly assimilate because I was still trying to understand the language and learn it. But I have one quick story that was interesting about me. When I was little, I went to a Catholic school in kindergarten in the Philippines called San Agustin, and I'm the fifth of 6 kids. My parents got called into the principal's office, and the principal was a nun. My mom's like, I've never been called to the principal's office for one of my kids. Like, why am I being called for Sheila? And they sat my parents down. And they said, we just want to explain a mark on her report card that she has a character flaw. And my mom was like, oh my God, like what did she do? What did she do in class? This was in the Philippines in kindergarten, pre-United States. The nun said, well, she speaks up too much in class. She tells the teacher statements like, well, why are you teaching that us again today when you taught us that yesterday? And I was just like a pushy kid. And I would complain about things and how they were teaching something. And they wanted to apologize. And I was supposed to be the valedictorian of the class. But then because of that mark, I was not. So fast forward, my parents matriculate us into public school in Houston, Texas. My mother's so nervous about my report card, goes into the principal's office in the United States in Houston and sits the principal down and says, I have a problem child. I have Sheila, because this was to the report card. Remember, it's stereotypical Asian. She like speaks up too much. And then the principal's like, that's incredible. That's great. That's what we want. What we want here. So though community belonging was hard to fit in, I will say that I also felt the sense of like, wow, this may be the place I can blossom
Yeah.
and be me. I can speak up. I can, be pushy. So it was an interesting experience. And then I had incredible loving aunts who always encouraged me to just speak up and have this sassy personality. And I allowed me to just grow up with this joy of being me, which
Thank
was,
goodness.
yeah. And a father who was so incredibly nurturing and no stereotypes, Carla, because the other thing about the Philippines, it is the narrowest gender gap in the World Economic Forum report of all Asian
I did
countries.
not know that.
I think it's like 6.
Super progressive.
Super progressive. And this was even before colonial times. Women were allowed to own land. Women were allowed to be priestesses and leaders of their tribes. So women run things in the Philippines. It's a matriarchal culture.
Okay.
So
This makes so much sense knowing
is
this
it like interesting?
Yeah,
Right.
it makes so much sense. You and I have not talked about this. We actually share this. So I came to Dallas in 1978. I was 5 years old.
I was there too.
You were in Dallas also, or just
No,
close by?
Houston in
Yeah.
1978.
Yeah. So 1978 came to Dallas. I was 5. I did not speak the language.
Mm.
I too always felt odd, like not quite, but yet was nurtured. So I can relate to this notion of being nurtured and supported, but also feeling not quite like I belonged anywhere. Didn't really belong in the US, didn't really belong in Uruguay, didn't really belong in Montreal, like didn't really fit any one of the molds.
That's right.
But it's so interesting to hear this about you, and then tying it back to the need to impress versus inspire, which I had early in my career as well.
Mhm.
It's almost like it's a survival tactic, like you're just trying to make it.
It's fighting to have a voice in the room.
Yeah.
Fighting. Now, again, I don't judge it. I accept it because
Right.
that fighter in us,
It served us to a point.
allowed us.
Yeah.
It also made us bold.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the word that I probably get called the most. So you're absolutely right.
That's right.
Okay. So I want to know, based on all of what we've talked about, where did this heart of service come from?
Mm.
This desire to help families, this desire to help people. What was that born out of?
Oh my gosh. First time I've been ever asked that. 2 places. My parents, my mom's family served. My grandfather was the mayor of the town, and he grew up in the market, and he cared so deeply about everyone around him and the town. My parents are very involved in the schools, in the church. We provide scholarships to very, very poor people in our hometown. So I grew up with parents that cared, that were politically and civically involved. And I saw that growing up. But probably the best gift my parents ever gave me, and I have shared this, is they sent me back to, so I went from the Philippines, 3 years in Houston. Then my parents sent my youngest brother and I, because we're five and 6 of the 6 kids, we're the 2 youngest, back to the home province of the Philippines to a local Catholic school. And I had to relearn the language. And I played with kids from all walks of life. And on the streets, we learned to clean the floor of the classroom with a coconut husk. I'm really good at cleaning floors. Um, I I had to go relearn the language, but that year in the province really opened my eyes around I would go into my friends' homes and realize, um, hmm, it's gonna make me emotional on how hard it was for my friends' parents to put food on the table, and how giving and loving and sharing they were with whatever they had. I've read books later of like people who take journeys that take a year off with no money and backpack like across India just to see the humanity in people of sharing and giving when you don't have something, and I saw that graciousness, that level of love that comes from people. And it's not about how much you have, it's really what's in here. And I felt it as a child. I became more emotive as a child. I was already pretty sassy, but then I was like, I started to emote more. My parents noticed that. That year had such an impact on me that I really think changed. It was, when we talk about imprints, that was like one of the foundational imprints in my life.
Wow. You're reminding me of a story. I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but inspired by the fellowship, I was part of a company, the sale of a company, also a take private, and had my first event and decided to take a year off for the first time in my life. I'd worked since I was 13 years old,
Mm.
and decided to take a year off, thankfully, with the support of my husband. We unenrolled the kids from school and we traveled the world. And we called that year Finding Ubuntu. And my goal was to quote unquote pop the kids' bubble and to take them to different places and to connect with people from different backgrounds. And there was a moment when we were in India. And I remember feeling self conscious because we intentionally did not stay at super nice hotels everywhere we went. But in Agra, apparently the only safe hotel that we could stay in was uber nice, like the nicest place I've ever stayed in. And it made me very self-conscious. I was like, okay, this is not what I intended to do. I didn't want to like give my kids the royal treatment across the globe. And so I was personally triggered and I projected it onto my child. I self-consciously said to my son, who was 13 at the time, "What did you see today?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What did you see today?" And he was like, "I don't understand what you're asking." And I said, "Did you see the man that couldn't afford a wheelchair that was dragging himself on the ground with sores all over his body? Did you see the people that were bathing in the bucket? Did you see?" And I was like explicitly calling out all the poverty that I saw to him. And he said, "Mom, I saw families laughing
Mm.
and playing.
Mm.
I saw people singing. I saw multiple generations running a business together and working together.
Mhm.
I saw happy people." And he said, "And I didn't see anybody on their phone."
Mm.
And he said, "I don't know why you're imposing your value system on them. You're the one that chooses to drive a BMW." And I was like, holy shit, out of the
Wow.
mouths of babes at 13.
Wow. And to your point, that year there was so much joy. I mean, it was hard initially because I had to go relearn the language, but the play, the belonging that I felt with the kids, and in fact, I went to go see some of my childhood friends a couple years ago, and we're all in touch on Messenger, and they're actually coming here, and I'm hosting them here in New York. I, you know, that year was so special for me as part of my becoming, as one of the steps of my becoming.
And you were 9, 10. How old were you?
I was 10. I was
That's
10 years.
crazy. That's
Yeah, it
so wild,
was.
Sheila, that you still carry that.
So many memories and eye-opening for me. And also just the difficulty of how when you're given a pet and you start to realize an out of body experience of something you love so much that you're like, okay, it's not just about me, because you have teenage hormones. We had sent our son to Thatcher because Thatcher also assigned you a horse and he was 14. And I remember he was nice when he left, but he was even nicer when he came home. And I was like, it was that kind of experience. And what I felt was just this sense of love, like love and play and joy and belonging, um, and that I honestly still carry with it. I have a very close relationship with the town still,
That's very neat.
Yeah. And I love going home there and visiting. And I'm friends with my second, third, and fourth cousins.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so special. You rarely hear those sorts of stories from immigrants. That's so special that you went back for that window. Your parents were so smart to do that. Um,
Yes.
okay, Sheila. So, given this massive heart of yours and your ability to make massive impact with your massive brain, now what? What's your hope for the world?
And again, I have this like starfish principle, in the sense of I feel like in my own way, my hope for the world is where my responsibility of where my light and where I can help. A few places um, that I believe my sons are loving men who respect women.
Mm,
Super important to me. Like I think about, where I make impact. How am I helping families? And I continue to help families. Um, and in my holotropic breath work, what I see so clearly that my responsibility in life is to live a life of authentic love with my husband and to help other people and guide people with the role modeling that we can say that is it hard? Yes, but we try and live in love, and trust in love. And I think about that. And then my role with my family, my parents. Um, and then of course with my community. And it's an interesting one, Carla. I think about more and more you know, helping nonprofits, but I'm starting to really think about is this next chapter in my life not just helping build companies, how do I get closer and more proximate to people and the problems and the pain that they're really feeling so that whether I'm building a solution with ohai, which we talk to families all the time, or in my nonprofit or philanthropic work or in my strategy advising work, how do I get closer to the true lived experience that other humans in my life are experiencing? And I'm I'm pushing myself around that. I'm not when I say pushing myself, it's not stress related. It's like I'm also trying to do it in an effortless, natural, non-attached way that this is the journey of life. And I'm trying to get more clarity around that of meaning and get closer in and go deeper in it. So,
yeah.
uh,
But
and it's in
I
different
just
aspects.
I hear the wisdom of that challenge to yourself. That's also part of the fellowship, right?
Yes,
Proximity is something that we're encouraged to embrace and to stay proximate.
that's right. Because that was the experience I had in fifth grade.
Yeah, that's so true.
Comes full circle in the immigrant experience, and in the way that the work that I've done and inner awareness about my inner child, all the way back there.
Yeah. Well, Sheila, wow. What an amazing journey. What an inspiring journey. The love that you have for your husband and your family is so evident, but the love that you have for your customers and for the world is also evident. And I'm grateful to people like you. Um, you're a phenomenal role model to people like me and to all of us. And I'm so happy you exist in this planet. It gives me hope that you exist on this planet.
Thank you. I'm so glad we all do. One other thing,
Yeah.
new learning is more and more. I used to think of the vis-a-vis connection between you and I. It's like the Sheila to Carla. And as I lose myself in my identity, is it really the Sheila or is it how is Carla in me and how am I in Carla? Like I don't know. I've been starting to really think about this oneness of not worrying about Sheila. It's witnessing Sheila and being objective around me and where I am. But I'm starting to figure out, how is my emotional connection with someone that loses my identity as Sheila? And it's part of that proximate journey that I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, that's Ubuntu.
Yes.
We have another fellow, Yemi, who always tells me, like, who would I be without Yemi? Like, if you remove your name, if you remove your name, what's left, the identity of name. And even in talking to you today, hearing the stories that you were sharing, I was like, oh, I've experienced that. And I've experienced that. And I've experienced,
Yes.
wow. Okay. Sheila is a big mirror. And I think the first time we were sitting at that table,
Yes.
having that conversation, within seconds, you were saying something that I was, and it was just like, wait a minute, we just had the same experience. This is so wild. Right down to our house renovations. Like we were exactly mirroring each other.
And what I love, actually, I'm going to take away and really journal about this, is I wonder that when we meet another person, or where we're sitting with someone or advising someone, or, it's that whole don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing, or just because this is where we lose connection. We jump to judgment because we either prioritize ourselves, or we're not addressing that we are enough, that I am enough, right? That's part of the life journey. I wonder if you just approach at anyone and says, wow, they're a reflection of me.
Yeah. Just an iteration, just another iteration.
And I say that because you are on this earth, and I'm so thankful for you. And you are my mirror, my love. So thank you.
Oh, I will receive that. Oof, that feels really good to receive. So I'm going to take that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks for
Sheila,
having me.
I'm so grateful for your precious time. Thank you for spending time with us. I'm sure our listeners are going to be so inspired.
Thank you.
And go use Ohai, people.
Oh, okay.
We'll post it in the show notes.
Thank y'all for listening today. If you're so inclined, please follow, subscribe, download, share, all of the things so that we can keep going. We appreciate your support so much. If you're interested in learning more, go to thecoeffect.co.